Hi, welcome back to an episode of the Guys Book Club in the World. Book Club. Yeah! Right, I didn't change it. And today we are an extremely special episode because today, guys, we're on episode number 378, which is so crazy, guys. So many episodes. And in order to celebrate this great achievement of so many episodes, we are going to continue our journey with Influence of Psychology of Persuasion by Cialdini on page 110, 210, 211. And you can see I need much less. I need much less. Pages on each episode because we need to close the gap. So let's go. Title: How to Say No. It is easy enough to feel probably warned against the scarcity pressures, but it is substantially more difficult to act on that warning. Part of the problem is that our typical reaction to scarcity hinders our ability to think. When we watch something we want to become less available, a physical agitation sets in, especially in those cases involving direct competition. The blood comes up, the focus narrows, and the emotions rise. As this visceral current advances, the cognitive rational side retreats. In the rush of arousal, it is difficult to be calm and studied in our approach. As CBS television's president, Robert Wood, commented in the wake of his present adventure, you get caught up in the mania of the thing, the acceleration of it. Logic goes right out of the window. Here's the predicament then. Knowing the causes and the workings of scarcity pressures might not be sufficient to protect us from them, because knowing is a cognitive thing. And cognitive processes are suppressed by emotional reaction to scarcity. In fact, this may be the reason for the great effectiveness of scarcity tactics. When they are employed properly, our first line of defense against foolish behavior, a thoughtful analysis of the situation becomes less likely. If, because of brain clouding arousal, we cannot rely on our knowledge about the scarcity principle to stimulate a properly conscious behavior, what can we use? Perhaps in fine jujitsu style, we can use the arousal itself as our prime cue. In this way, we can turn the enemy's strength to our advantage, rather than relying on a considered cognitive analysis of the entire situation. We might simply tune ourselves to the internal visceral sweep of our warning. By learning to flag the experience of heightening arousal in a compliance situation, we can alert ourselves to the possibility of scarcity tactics then and to the need for caution. But suppose we accomplish this trick of using the rising tide of arousal as a single to calm ourselves and to proceed with care. What then? Is there any other piece of information we can use to help make a proper decision in the face of scarcity? After all, merely recognizing that we are to move carefully doesn't tell us the direction in which to move. It only provides the necessary context for a thoughtful decision. Fortunately, There is information available on which we can base thoughtful decisions about skills item. It comes once again from the chocolate chip cookie study, where the researchers uncovered something that seems strange but rings true regarding scarcity. Even though the scales cookies were rated significantly more desirable, they were not rated as any better tasting than the bundled cookies. So despite the increased yearning that scarcity caused, the raters said they wanted to have more of the scales cookies in the future and would pay a greater price for them. It did not make the cookies taste one bite better. Therein lies an important insight. The joy is not in experiencing a scarce commodity, but is possessing it. But in possessing it, it is important that we not confuse the two. Whenever we confront the scarcity pressures surrounding some item, we must also confront the question of what it is we want from the item. If the answer is that we want the thing for the social, economic, or psychological benefits of possessing something rare, then fine. Scarcity pressures will give us a good indication of how much we would want to pay for it. The less available it is, the more valuable to us it will be. But very often we don't want a thing purely for the sake of owning it. We want it instead for its utility value. We want to eat it, or drink it, or touch it, or hear it, or drive it, or otherwise use it. In such cases, it is vital to remember that scarce things do not taste or feel or sound or hide or work any better because of their limited availability. And for this is a simple point, it can often escape us when we experience the item, the desirability, the skills item naturally possess. I can cite a family example. My brother Richard supported himself for school by employing a compliance trick that cashed in handsomely on the tendency of most people to miss that simple point. In fact, his tactic was so effective that he had to work only a few hours each weekend for his money, leaving the rest of the time free for studies. Richard sold cars, but not in a showroom nor on a car lot. He would buy a couple of used cars sold privately for the newspaper on one weekend and adding nothing but soap and water, would sell them at the cited profit for the newspaper on the following weekend. To do this, he had to know three things. First, he had to know enough about cars to buy those that were offered for sale at the bottom of the blue book price range but could be legitimately resold for a higher price. Second, once he got the car, he had to know how to write a newspaper ad that would stimulate a substantial buyer interest. Third, once a buyer arrived, he had to know how to use the scarcity principle to generate more desire for the car than it perhaps deserved. Richard knew how to do all three. For our processes, though, we need to examine his curve with just the field. For a car he had purchased on a prior weekend, he would place an ad in the Sunday paper. Because he knew how to construct a good ad, usually received an array of calls from potential buyers on Sunday morning. Each prospect who was interested enough to want to see the car was given an appointment time, the same appointment time. So if 6 people were scheduled, they were all scheduled for, say, 2 o'clock that afternoon. This little device of simultaneous This is the device of simultaneous scheduling paved the way for later compliance because it created an atmosphere of competition for a limited resource. Typically, the first prospect to arrive would begin a studied examination of the car and would engage in standard car buying behavior, such as pointing out any blemishes or deficiencies, or asking if the price was negotiable. The psychology of the situation changed radically, however, when the second buyer drove up. The availability of the car to reasonable prospect suddenly became limited by the presence of the other. Often the earlier arrival inadvertently stalking the sense of rivalry will assert his right to primary consideration. Just a minute now. I was here first. If he didn't assert that right, Richard will do it for him. Another thing is the second buyer, Richard would say, "Excuse me, but this other gentleman was here before you. So can I ask you to wait on the other side of the driveway for a few minutes until he's finished looking at the car? Then, if he decided he doesn't want it, or if he can't make up his mind, I will show it to you." Guys, guess what? This is the end of the episode. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. I need a pleasure to choose to invest the time here. And I can't wait to see you all tomorrow episode. Until then, take up yourself for time and bye.